Welcome to this session, tracking and mapping vehicles in real time. There's a certain irony there. To those of you watching this, perhaps who were not here live, it took us about 20 minutes to get connected. So the whole real time thing is sort of humorous for the people here. We're going to do something a little bit different. I've met many of you over the years at the Fox Pro, Southwest Fox, and I have a certain style, and I came across this year a real problem. I had this idea of how to track and map vehicles in real time using Google Maps and some other things. And that was a great idea. So I put together the whole thing, and I wrote the white paper. The white paper was almost 400 pages long because the thing was so darn complicated and so darn difficult to use that it would take me 3 days to explain it. That's an exaggeration, but it took for sure half a day to explain it. And I went over with people and said, "This is too complicated." I said, "I know, right? But what are we going to do about it?" And I was beside myself. What was I going to do about it? So you'll notice that there is no white paper on the download site. Now there is actually a white paper. It's right here. No, right? It's here. See? Tracking and mapping in real time. There's the white paper. And I said, you know what? We have to do something different. So this week, I thought of a better way to do it. This week, Tuesday, in the middle of the night, I thought, you know what? There is a way to do this, right? That will, well, it was going to take an hour and 15 minutes. Now I'm not sure how to do this. And so I had to redo the entire thing from scratch. So I redid the whole white paper. It's not quite completed yet. And we're actually going to build this program right here with me in real time. And we're going to see exactly how I did it and take you through the steps rather than me just showing you, oh, here's what I did. We're going to actually get into it, roll up our sleeves a little bit, which I think is better anyway. But that way, so when you say, hey, where's the white paper explaining all this? It's right here. All right. But it's coming. All right. It's coming. All right. So because you're going to give me a break on that because you don't want, right? Right. Everybody cool? Let's go. Let's go. All right. This session, we're not going to use Google. We'll see that. But delivery or tracking of vehicles and fleets and things like that is incredibly common in today's world. And it's all database driven, but rarely do we see Fox Pro, Visual Fox Pro being used to manage that kind of data. Well, I would like to show you how to do that. We're going to create maps. We're going to put the vehicles on the maps, timings, directions, and how to store historical data for comparison. We will become little fleet managers right here. Now, Vinitsky Consulting, I look at the same slide I've used every year. And you can read all about our company. You can read all about myself. I have a lot of experience, and I enjoy pushing the boundaries of Visual Fox Pro, connecting it to other kinds of things, and taking it outside of its box where it lives. And all right, here's what we're going to learn about today. We're going to learn about GPS receivers, maps, making maps with Bing. Bing is going to be our solution. Google Maps out, Bing Maps in. Right? Now you'll say, "Wow, that's a little unconventional." Yeah, well, so is redoing everything 3 days before the session. We're going to talk about our trucks, updating our locations, historical data, collections, and summary. And it's going to be the various illustrations throughout these slides. Now, these illustrations are copyrighted, and I have to mention this, by the famous, I don't think soon to be famous illustrator Nessie Schiff. Now, Nessie Schiff's maiden name, for anybody listening to this, happens to be Vinitsky. Complete coincidence. Complete coincidence. What? Hide link at the bottom. I got it. Boy, I got a lot of Kibitz helpers over here. All right. Now we're getting a little help for today's session. We're going to have Mapping Marty help us out. Marty's an expert on maps, and he'll be poking his head into making comments now and then to help us along. Now, I want to make sure that we get rolling right away so that we can get the fine points of how we're going to get a path to do this properly. I want to get rolling so we'll have a path to do this. Rolling. It's like a truck. Okay. GPS, let's learn some basics about GPS. GPS is not really what we think it is. It's a combination of satellites and ground receivers. GPS is just a bunch of satellites, 30 satellites to be exact, and they orbit the Earth at an altitude of 20,000 kilometers. It was started in 1978 and was finished in 1994, all 30 satellites. Now, these satellites are solar powered, and wherever you are on the planet, Anywhere you can see 4 GPS satellites. And in fact, you can get apps on your phone that will show you the satellites and which ones you're connecting to. So there's always 4 satellites available and visible from any spot on the Earth. That's what the 30 satellites and the way they're configured guarantees that anybody on Earth can see 4 signals. These signals, they travel at the speed of light, and they're interpreted by your GPS receiver. So all the satellites are doing is sending a beam of light down. That's their job. It's up to the little thing in the GPS receiver to calculate how long it took each beam of light to get there. And based on those 3 beams of light, and we'll see why there's a fourth one in just a minute, to figure out exactly where you are. Now, if that sounds like a very fine calculation, that's because it is. Uh, the satellite uses the theory of relativity and a mathematical concept called trilateration to pinpoint your position. Now, probably most of us are not interested in learning any more about trilateration, but if you are, you can go read about it. It's very interesting. If you're into the math of it, they send the data to the receivers. Now, the satellites compute the location. No, they don't. They're just sending that beam of light. GPS assumes all receivers have perfectly synchronized atomic clocks to use in making calculations. Because otherwise, they can't calculate how long the beam of light took to get there. The beam of light left satellite at atomic clock time X, and then the receiver is supposed to say, well, it arrived here at atomic time Y, and it's supposed to have a perfectly accurate, never off atomic clock. How many people here think that every cell phone you buy has that? How many think it's never been in your cell phone? That would be a better guess, right? Receivers in the cell phones are the very low end of receivers, the lowest possible end, which is why I can sit on my couch in my living room with my cell phone and play. Oh, where am I? Oh, I'm on my couch. 5 minutes later, I'm on my neighbor's couch, right? Because it's the receiver, that clock, that's determining it. The better the receiver, the more accurate the data is on the GPS. A better the receiver, the more expensive it is. Expensive receivers have even 2 units in 2 receivers. So it does one measurement and one measurement and compares the two. Those are $3,000 receivers. Right? And they're not going to be your cell phone, but those are the kind of receivers the military uses. The military uses 2 things. They use part of the satellites that you're not allowed to access, and they use super duper duper high quality receivers. So they can pinpoint something down to a foot. You can't do that. You can't do that. However, it's not as bad as you think from what I just described. Um, generally, a general UPS unit is good within probably 16 feet anyway, in any direction. Um, of course, those laser signals often bounce off of things, and trees even can distort a signal. The best GPS accuracy is in the middle of a field. I was in the Phoenix airport car rental garage, and it showed me overseas somewhere because all that interference with the structure, right, meant that they couldn't figure out where I was. It's a good thing I wasn't asking for directions how to drive around the parking garage. Now I said 16 feet in any direction. It's 30 feet. I mean like a 15-foot radius around. It's generally accurate. Now these receivers these are they're large receivers with multi-million-dollar clocks in them. But quality of atomic clocks varies, and that's the real problem here. Is that it's not necessarily bad that your cell phone uses a cheap atomic clock, if it's a good cheap atomic clock. But if it was built in, let's say, some random foreign country, which I won't name, which has a reputation for not making quality kinds of things like that, right? The quality of the receiver, right, is not necessarily related to how expensive it is. The more expensive ones have double and triple receivers inside of them to guarantee accuracy. Right? But the GPS system assumes everything is perfectly synchronized. There is no room in any GPS calculation for any error. You'll never get a GPS calculation that says, I think so. It's always a very sure thing, and it's not quite as sure as it is. Now, the clocks in these receivers have another problem, and that is atomic clocks drift. I don't know if anybody's familiar with how atomic clock works, but they drift, which means that um, it's right today. And people think atomic clock means it's always checking in with the atomic clock center. That's not true. It only checks in when it sets itself. So, for example, I have an atomic clock hanging on the wall in my living room, and I push the button, and it goes off, and it goes somewhere into magic atomic land, and it finds the time. It doesn't do that all the time. So the clock can drift like any other clock. There's no way for it to automatically update itself. These are the problems with GPS and using it to map things. And that is, it's not that accurate. Now, you've heard the stories about people being turned into the river, right? Google told them to take a right on the street, and it would turn into a river. That's a separate problem because um, GPS has nothing to do with maps. Couldn't have less to do with maps than the man on the moon. If all those GPS calculations are done correctly, you get a longitude and latitude. All that work for that. Now, what does that tell you? To us, it means nothing. So somebody's got to take that and translate it into where that is on the map. And that's where it gets worse. Google doesn't make maps. Apple now has made its own mapping system. It took them years and billions of dollars, and it was a disaster at first. But they made their own mapping system. The mapping system was originally made by the federal government, and then it was released to the public, and various organizations have increased it, and now there are a couple of competing organizations. They sell the map access to Google. Google doesn't own a map. And without these people, Google couldn't find its way down the street. So Google takes the data from the GPS, which says longitude and latitude, hopefully, and it compares it to the map that it's paying access for, which is accurate, hopefully, because 15% of all roads change every year. That's a lot. 15% of all roads change every year, and these mapping companies have to keep up with that. So when that person sued Google for turning them into the river, it wasn't really Google's fault. Google saw on the map there's a road there, but some mapping company hadn't updated the fact that there's no more road there. So Google then ended up being sued, but it really wasn't their fault. As you can see, Google, when they do maps, they basically take a bunch of stuff from all kinds of people, don't own anything, put it all together and charge you for it, which is pretty much what their business. Now, as we create our application, we're going to need to use a web control. Now, some people might say, well, we have a web browser control in VFP, right? Right? Right. Right? Right. But it's very old, right? Right? And that's a problem. And new applications don't work in that old web browser, including mapping. However, you can avoid this problem if you wish to use their web control with a registry hack courtesy of our friend Rick Strahl, who first discovered this problem. And you can go to his website, and he has a whole detailed series of instructions on how to create this web hack, which will somehow allow IE7. He explained it. I don't understand it. But if you do it, it works. So we can still use the VFP web control because that'll make our life a little bit simpler. We don't have to, but it'll make it a little bit simpler. Question? Is that a question? I like questions. Okay. Any questions so far? Right. The reason we're going to use Bing is really easy to use. You say, well, are their maps as good as Google's? They're the same maps. Are their computers as good as Google's? I don't know. So that GPS system is going to come down. Bing is going to take that information, and Bing is going to give you back longitude and latitude and match it to a map of wherever you are. That's what's supposed to happen. Now, in order to use Bing, we're going to work with posting URLs. The way Bing works, very simple. You create a URL string, you post it, and whatever you want appears. That sounds a little bit simple, and perhaps a little bit oversimplified, but there are a couple of websites that you should bookmark if you wish to learn about Bing and its various. The first is there is a GitHub with Bing map samples. and has samples of all kinds of different things here, and has the code for them. Now, the code is all HTML and JavaScript, but you very much get the idea, because not only may we want someday to just drive our vehicles around and show where they are, we might want to know driving directions. Like driving directions, of all the things you can do in a map, posting a picture of something on a particular spot is actually the most complicated one. Driving directions, all those other things are much simpler. And in fact, there is a website here. We're going to have to unzoom in for this. This website, it's called learn.microsoft.com, and it goes through creating custom app URL. But the most important thing it does is it gives you all the parameters you can use in your URL string. And they make it sound very simple, and sometimes it is. All these parameters do various things. There are parameters in general. There are parameters for searching. There are parameters for driving directions. There are parameters for a lot of parameters for driving directions, a zillion of them. There are parameters for identifiers, which we're not going to get into today. The parameters for all the different things you might ever do, and all you do is concatenate it into a URL on your own business. I cannot tell you how much simpler that is than anything else in the world. To do the same thing in Google is a Herculean effort. Now, if you're a big company and you have a fleet of 5,000 trucks, and Google says, well, it's going to cost you $10 million to buy our cool software that does that, you don't care. Well, we're making the software, and we do care. Google is very complicated to use in these things because they only really want large customers with lots of money. They want you to have a professional API that's going to cost you a lot of money. Now, Bing also has an API that you can sign up for. And you can sign up for the API and get a map key. We're not going to use a map key. The purpose of a map key is being able to save information for later. If you're putting together a bunch of identifiers or a bunch of trucks where they are, and you want to stop now, you want to save it and come back to it later and assign it an identifier that you can refer to, you're going to need a map key. To create a URL and post it, you don't need anything. If you want to start saving things, then you're going to need a map key. Any questions? How many people here thought when they read this thing we'd be using Bing? How many people thought we'd be using Google? How many people now are thinking, wow, why did I think that? Let's take a look at how we did this, how we're doing this here. Shall we? Shall we?
Yes, please.
Oh, what a good idea. All right. Is that font big enough? Can everybody read it okay?
Yep.
All right. Make sure I don't have any hanging objects in there. One thing about Bing objects is they usually hang around. All right. So we got a PRG here. And we're going to create a form. It's not going to have much on it. It's going to have on it the web control. And it's going to have a button called refresh. Now, it's going to start off by showing a map of my house. You're all invited. And that would be a good place for us to start to see how we built that URL. You can see the URL right here. And I'm going to put I'm going to break it up into different multiple lines so we can see how it works. So it always starts off with default.aspx. What's that? It always starts off with that. I certainly can. Is that better? Okay. So it always starts with Bing Map. All calls always start with that same first part. Then there's a command and an equal sign, and the parameters for the command. Spaces are not allowed. And this URL says where would we like to show? 2848 space West space Lunt space Chicago space Illinois. The same thing you would type in, and that's my house. And by the way, it's really awful because we fixed the garage in the back, and now Google has changed the picture of my house from the front to the garage falling down. It's quite embarrassing. Okay, let's put this back together. So the first thing that's going to happen is the init of our web control is simply going to navigate to that URL. That's the first thing that's going to happen. Let's do that. Okay, now it's going to take a second here. And actually, I pressed the refresh button. Okay, and let's go. What are we doing here? I got to make this a little bit smaller. I see. I can't really see what's happening. Let's make it a little bit smaller, shall we? I made the font bigger. I made it a little bit too large. Let's see. Let's make the form a little bit smaller. Height. Let's make it height 500. And now, one thing you will discover is if you put in an incorrect URL or incorrect address, something like that, Bing will not give you an error message. It'll just continue to show you Scottsdale. That's the only way you really know if you did something wrong. It doesn't look right, which is a little unfortunate, but let's shorten up our control a little bit here. And refresh button. You are so correct. Thank you, sir. Wow, you guys are really on top of things. How many people here have used Fox Pro before? All right. By nature, I'm not a very good typist. My wife says, like, she can't believe I didn't learn to type as a kid. And I said, when I was a kid, boys didn't learn to type. And she just makes this noise like that. I told my son he should learn to type. I was actually, sometimes I occasionally, well, I never really digress into stories, but every once in a while I might, right? And that is, I was talking to a principal of a school, and I said, boy, I wish my son would learn to type, but he doesn't think it's important. And they said, you should send him to our school. And I said, why? Do you teach your kids to type? He said, no, we teach them to listen to their father. Yes. Let's put it at how high do we make it? We only 100. Let's make it. How do we make the form? We made the form 500. We made this 400. All right, so we'll put it 425. Let's see if we can see that better now. A little bit better. Oh. That's what happens if you don't have that. Sometimes if you don't have Rick Strahl's hack, it's telling me. It's going at its own speed. I don't know if it's the internet. But there's the picture of my house, by the way. The garage coming down. And now my house is the center of the map. Very, very slow. I'm not sure why it's exactly so slow. It wasn't previously. I don't know if it's the way I've set up here on the internet or whatever it is. But we're centered around my house. Now, if I press the refresh button, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take 5 trucks. I'm going to randomly pick addresses for the trucks. Now, why am I going to randomly pick addresses for the trucks? Hold on one second. I received the first address of a truck is at 3230 West California. There's a truck there. Right. So I made it into part of my URL. There's a truck at 2750 West Fitch. I added that onto my URL. There's a truck at 26 West Fitch. I added that onto my URL. And there's a truck at 3030 West Kedzie. That's not actually an address. That's going to be a problem. I added that onto my URL. Now it's going to adjust, really hopefully. Oh, man. You ever think like everything works perfectly and he's down in front of a bunch of people and it doesn't? But let's go. Here we go. It's still coming to my house though. Hear these annoying errors. It was working fine for me. I did not put in Rick Strahl's thing. I probably should have. It's still thinking. It likes to think apparently. Well, it's supposed to be redrawing the map. Did about 10 minutes ago. So there's a picture of my house, and there's little dots around it where all those addresses are, right? Way awkward. All right, let's try it again. Uh-huh. All right. Take a look at the code of what was trying to go on there. When I press the refresh button, it calls something called update the collection. What update the collection does is it opens two tables, trucks and history. Let's take a look at those tables. Trucks, pretty straightforward. It has an IID, which is our primary key. It has a name of the truck, and it's called an NID because whatever system we're using to get the data from is going to have its own ID for that truck, and we need to know what that is. So if we want truck number 32, right, we have to know that's called truck number 32 to the system. We also have to call history. And history is also equally simple. Simply has a primary key, then has the foreign key for the truck, has the address, the time. So at this particular date and time, the truck is at this address. Now we can also store the longitude and latitude in here, and we'll talk in a minute about why we might want to do that or might not. Now we have a complete detailed history of that truck at where it was, however often we want to refresh. I'm using the refresh button. You could have a timer. You can refresh as often as you want it. Basically, it depends how many trucks you have. You have 500 trucks, you can't refresh every minute. Sometimes you want to have a button where they have to manually refresh. But refresh creates these log entries, so to speak. And if it couldn't find the truck, it doesn't put an address in. That's the only way we know there's an error. There's no address there. Now we can report on every truck's movements throughout the day. And we can then use these calculations, these addresses, and we can ask Bing, how long should it take to go from there to there? I can make a URL that has a route of every one of their stops, and Bing will tell me that takes 4 hours. The guy was out for 9 hours. Yes.
Why do you not store simply the location data? You can ask the same question for Bing or OSM or whatever. If you just store the longitude latitude, you don't need those steps.
Well, the reason is because for people, it's easier to read addresses than longitude and latitude.
Yeah.
If I'm the fleet manager and I want to know where the truck was, longitude and latitude mean nothing to me.
I just asked for storing.
You would store them. You would store them. I didn't store them in here, but you would, because you can use them in calculations. Yeah, I'm sorry. The question was, why am I not also storing longitude and latitude in addition to the address of where the truck was? And the answer was is that I would store longitude and latitude because you can use it in calculations, It doesn't have any meaning to the users who are going to review the data, but you could theoretically use it in calculations. You could also use the address in calculations. Longitude and latitude is more precise than an address. Longitude and latitude is very exact, assuming the GPS got it right. This address is only what Bing thinks that longitude and latitude is. The actual longitude and latitude will tell you exactly how many miles the person went. One of my clients, they compare drivers. Let's say we have 5 drivers who do the same route, truck A, B, C, and D. One does it in 4 hours, one does it in 5 hours, one does it in 3 hours, one does it in 7. Why? Well, if one of those averages comes up at McDonald's and he's sitting there for half hour, they can see that. Now, on a grand scale, it's a concept that Amazon uses to, I was going to say harass, to guide their delivery drivers, gently guide them. They calculate, using this longitude and latitude, how long it should take to go to each stop, how long it should take to get the package out of the car, how long it should take to go up the steps to the second. And their drivers are evaluated on how well they meet that time schedule. And if they're not meeting it, they get called on the radio, on their cell phone. I would not really advise that. But yes, the answer to your question is I would sort of longitude and latitude. I didn't hear, but I would. Excellent question. So then what we do is we have our trucks in our history tables, and we're going to make a collection string for use in our building our URL. So we're going to scan through all the trucks. Now we can't really connect to this teletrack system. The teletrack system, which is one of the systems my clients use, it's a device like this big that goes. It's wired in each truck, and you can't access that without all kinds of credentials. You can just randomly access it. You could never do a demo there. The teletrack system provides not only the longitude and latitude, but also provides other things as well. Tires and various things about the truck that are sent to the maintenance people. But one of its main functions is to provide this. So there's an API that you have to use to call that with truck number 32, and it will bring you back the address. So once I have the address back, I'm going to insert it into my history table. I'm going to add it to my collection string. And then at the very end, I'm going to use my collection string to update my map. Now, again, the problem with this is you won't get any idea if there's an error. If you built the collection string incorrectly, so you need a lot of error tracking in here because you have to know what kind of responses you can get from a teletrack kind of device. Theoretically, you get a response of longitude and latitude. You could also get a response of nothing, or you can get a response of vehicle out of commission, things like that. So what I did, since we don't really have teletrack, is I took I put in there to have it return randomly one of 5 trucks that I put into an array with different addresses in them. And that way it should return the addresses, and I realize those are fake addresses, but you get the idea that function right there would be calling the teletrack system. And then we rebuild the URL, and we navigate to it, and now our trucks are moving around. You can take it one step further if you want, and that is there are parameters that go with this little SP special collection right here. While we're up there. And that is besides just putting the address, I could put a heading, truck number 32. So when I click on that, it'll say truck number 32. When you click on something that says like Arby's or something, when you click on that, it'll say truck 32. And one of the things we also want to do is want to add parameters to URL so we don't see all that kind of stuff. We don't want Arby's coming up. We just want the plain basic roadmap. Although you can actually do the same thing with the spatial map from the satellites, and you can picture the truck driving actually down the street. which is cool, but takes a lot of processing power. That's the whole system. Let's see if we can do this down here. Is it? Yep. I know I didn't have to do. I almost did though. Almost did the type. I'm in this one. Okay, so we start off with our basic map of my house. It's taking a while to get to. And I'm going to press the refresh button, which could be on a timer, it could be on a button. All right, so it's giving me a bunch of addresses. Now, these would come from Teletrack, but it said they're coming from my made-up addresses. Creating a string. Whoa, my gosh. Enter 4 times ran. That's right?
If you integer of rank, you might return 0.
I might get a 0?
Yeah.
You are so right. You're so right. I totally forgot that. Thank you. It's been a year since I've used this function. Plus 1. Yep. Not that I'm feeling pressure or anything, you know. Don't think that. Yeah, I do. That looks better. Doesn't it? Yes. All right, let's try it again now. Let's clear everything out. And let's try it again. Here's the map of my garage falling down. Seriously. It's your 4th. There's 5. There are 5 members of the array. Pardon? But I have an integer, so it should. If it's 0, it'd be 1. It'd be 4 times 1. Oh no, I don't want it 1. I don't want it 1. I want it minus 1.
Yeah, maybe 3 times. Because you're now.
Right, I just remember how to do this from the old days because if it's a random number and times 4, so it could end up being an integer. It no, because a random number of between 0 and 1 times 4 is always going to be less than 4.
It's 0 to 4. Because integer runs between 1 and 0 including 0.
Right, so we're adding 1 to it. So
yeah, but now you can run from 1 to 5. Yeah.
Yes. Right. Excellent point. Also an excellent idea. Yeah, I would do it like this. Let's see. I would do, so I want a minimum of, the lowest I want is 1. And the highest, no, I don't want a high, a minimum, and, no, I'm sorry, I'm not thinking this through here on the spot. And we feel like helping them they can. So I want to have it, I want it between 1 and 5. So I want an integer of,
left parenthesis and right parenthesis, add 1 more, right parenthesis to the original function, and remove the last one. Add 1 right parenthesis where you have the mouse there, and remove the last one.
that it?
No, not the square.
Yeah.
That one there.
That must be integer, not empty.
Not too big, too correct.
Let's try it again now. Here's my house. Again, I always wondered how often they update these pictures. It's really not what my house looks like, I promise you. It's not falling down like that. All right, let's try the refresh this time. See if we got the rand going on there. All right, so we get an address. We should get 5 addresses here. All right. Now the map is going to slowly adjust itself. And there we go. There we go. And those little things are our trucks. We need to give them titles. We need to move zoom. The resolution probably makes it necessary to zoom in on this map. That's out, not in.
Someone stole your trucks.
All right, so we have some more addresses. So in general, if there's an error, it won't draw anything. It just sort of goes back to Scottsdale for some reason. And it's possible. I mean, I think they were. I thought they were, but
Just check the URL. Copy at the clipboard, run in the browser.
then we'll be able to cut paste it. It is possible that they didn't put in the city and the state for those addresses. I wonder if I did that. 32 West Tui. You know what? I probably did put the city and the state in too. I'm thinking because 32 West Tui doesn't really mean anything to it. So let's try putting the city and state in as well. So our array here. Let's try. Let's try this. These should be valid addresses. I mean, I think. So what I don't know, what I wasn't able to figure out from the documentation is what if one of the addresses is bad and the other 4 are good? What does it do? At 3030 West Kedzie would actually be in the middle of Lake Michigan. Change that. North California, West Fitch, West. Okay, those are all streets. Let's try that. Shall we? Raise your hand if you're having fun. Come on. Is this fun or what? It's like a programming club. All right, here's a picture of my house again. And let's refresh. Oh. Yep. Where's the plugin? Oh, tripping over. Oh, okay. There it is. There. I don't know, belt. Yeah, it's plugged in. Okay. All right. And but at this point with Google Maps, we're not even have had one anything yet. Okay, 5 addresses, which hopefully are right addresses. And let's see what it does. Do your thing there. There we go. That lag time is somewhat annoying. Um, it's
There's only 40 people on the Wi-Fi here.
oh no, it's a Bing thing. I think I don't think it's a internet thing here, unless yeah, too zoomed.
When I use Bing Maps, it usually centers on the last address entered, and then you have to zoom out as you see.
Well, it's supposed to when you send it probably with the URL we used, it's supposed to center on the thing you tell it to center on. It's supposed to center uh, on this address, and then should be little check marks for the trucks. We sure do. Let's see what happens. Pardon? Oh, really? Well, let's go into Chrome. Let's see if we can use that URL.
Goes to that area. Yeah. It just goes to that area and then zoom out. Zoom out. There. More. It's way out.
Way out.
The job shows the first one. Is the URL concatenating or just have one?
Let's take a look here. All right. So the first thing is we're designating the 2848 as the main place, and then we got percent 25. Why would that be there? It should be a character translator somewhere.
Yeah, you can see the right hand side of the characters.
320. I thought it's 20. Man. Right. Well, we could try it. It actually was. I was displaying it earlier. Let's try something else. Let's take out centering it on me.
Yeah, that's so your whole string is getting around the target.
Yep. Yep. You are right. Let's see what we're doing here. Location comes back. Let's look over at the end here. Character translating to location should be putting the spaces if one is.
What do you do with that for? What do you create?
I'm not.
To the right there.
I'm not sure why it's just way at 25 there, but that would not be right. Let's try it. Let's try it without.
You need to have a delimiter between your address and your collection that you're adding on. At the end of that string there on step 4,
Huh?
it ends in IL, which means that whatever you're putting in after that.
Well, let's see what I'm putting in. It looks like I'm putting in a delimiter when I concatenate it up here.
Yeah, but between your base address and the rest of them.
Yeah, because the base address, and then this will be the next thing that comes after it. This is here. All right, we'll just take this out here.
Giving those base address is fine. And right 25 is person.
All right.
The 25, pick 25. The person side.
Is it?
Yeah, for all applicable.
So we don't want that first. I want that first delimiter then. All right.
Just go to back to the ground.
Yep. Exactly. I'm pretty sure I need one more delimiter here.
It's possible to navigate method. You're getting some default behavior that is automatically learning. And that's why you're getting double and target.
Really.
Good, well, it's a thought.
I'm not aware of that behavior. If anybody is. Now, what's interesting is this CP down here. These numbers. Labs and laundry numbers. Equal something. I don't know where it's getting that from. All right. Here's what we're gonna do now. We're gonna try it with just one truck. One truck. Okay. First truck. Let's put my. I'll say that there. Let's do one truck. We'll do whatever the first one is. Now the question is, um, should I put back my house as the center? I'm not sure. There we go. Put that right there. Oh, there we go. There was an extra ampersand. Okay, extra ampersand. In the beginning, since I was concatenated, it was like ampersand, ampersand, and then just ignored the rest of it. And that is a downfall. It didn't give me any error message. As far as it was concerned, you want to put the wrong thing in, that's your problem. And there's my truck. Hot diggity. With 2 minutes left, the truck shows up. Yeah, that's all right. I get it. 2 minutes left, the truck shows up. I'm happy with that. Right? What? Now, there are other parameters I could put in that would change the color of this. You can't, well, you can draw, right? If you want to put an icon like of a little truck, there is a way to do it if you have an API key, but they don't. Bing does not advise it. So generally, what we'll do is they have different colors for different things. Like the trucks might be blue if they're this kind of truck, or green if this kind of truck, etc. And we're not showing any we're not showing anything else really in here. We could add traffic to it. We could add whatever we wanted to. It's a map. We could add anything. Same thing. If you went to maps, you could add whatever options you wanted. We can have those same options programmatically. Extra ampersand. Now let this be a lesson. I've always said, always count your ampersands before you press a URL. Am I right? Am I right? I was right. All right. I mean, that's just, I think that really almost goes without saying, right? Okay. Yeah. All right. So what we're trying to do here today is show that you can take a simple URL concatenation and you can use it to map fleets and track things like that. Right? And you can get the information. You can use that. You can store it. Right? You can have a system that shows you real time, however often you want, real time or when they press the button, where those trucks are. You can have a history log of it. Right? And with this, you could actually have no problem with the fleet manager sitting there and knowing what was going on with his fleet on a great big monitor showing him all of his trucks everywhere. And that is exactly what we did for a client. That's a big towing company where they know where all the tow trucks are, which is cool when I'm standing there, like a tow truck on 3rd Avenue. And I appreciate everyone, and I appreciate your going along with the sort of new elbows up kind of system that I'm doing, which I've never done before. And I also appreciate your help. And thank you very much. Don't forget about your evaluations. Have a great conference, and thank you very much. How many presenters have this much drama? How many have this much drama?
How much drama?
I mean, how many presenters have this much drama?
I don't know, but the moderators tell me.
Oh.
All right.
All right, so we have questions now, right? That's the idea?
We're going to go to the QA question.
I'm supposed to go to the QA session, okay?
Back,
Yeah, I don't want to share my screen anymore, though, right?
no, you do.
I do, okay.
Let's go to the back. See. Right now,
Now.
stop screen.
Stop screen.